We're off. Okay guys, so another podcast for you guys today. We're going to start off with a show sponsor, which is the company Cake It So, which is a cake making business which recently wowed our members at at the Murph barbecue, where we had a special cake made for us by Sarah Colbhouse, who runs the business. It was incredible. If you didn't see it, the attention to detail was insane. What was your favourite bit of the cake, Jack?
I mean, I've made it my mission every day I've been in the gym this week to have a piece of cake, because me and Matt stashed about 3 lunchboxes in the fridge and kept me going this week, to be honest, so every bit.
That didn't answer the question, but yeah, Jack's been eating a lot of cake, I've been eating a lot of cake.
I'm on my holidays.
Yeah, we're having a little bit of break in training as well, so, you know, we let ourselves go a little bit. It's the season to get fat, isn't it, Jack?
I mean, say let ourselves go a bit, it's standard diet for me, to be honest. Nothing's changed.
So yeah, it's a cake making business that specialises in cakes that don't look like cakes.
Wow.
Yeah, she's made some pretty weird ones. I asked Sarah what the weirdest cake she'd made was, and it was a sloth cake where the sloth was dressed like Freddie Mercury, which is pretty weird.
I think we need a picture.
Well,
pretty soon.
If you want to see what a sloth cake dressed like Freddie Mercury looks like, go onto Instagram, search Cake It So, and you'll see it. But yeah, so that's the sponsor of the show today. Thank you for our cake, Sarah, it was awesome, and also Jack really enjoyed it every single day this week for his lunch. If you want to check out Cake It So, look on their Instagram. We'll tag them in the show notes as well if you want to have a little look through the show notes. Wicked, so on to the podcast then. This podcast is a question from, or us answering a question from a member that was sent to us around the question and answer podcast that we did a few episodes ago. And at the time I saw it and thought, wow, that's such a great question, we could do a whole podcast on this. But then I kind of put it to one side and forgot about it and didn't ever end up answering the question. So it's from James Wilkes. Sorry James for taking so long to get back to you, but the glory for you is you now get an entire podcast devoted to answering your question. So we'll read the question first and then we'll sort of break it down. So the question is, he puts morning chief, which I quite like. He thinks I'm the chief. Hope you're good. Yes, Wilkes, I'm good. Just got round to finally listening to the Q&A podcast. Class as ever. Thank you for your support to the podcast, Wilkes. He says, a question I meant to ask for the podcast that I thought you might be able to give some advice on when you have some time is, for growth, improvement and bettering technique, would you say it's better to RX whenever you can, but not necessarily finish the reps or get capped, and it be a grind and a struggle, or scale to finish and perhaps dial in on technique? Is there something in constantly pushing and trying that heavier weight or gymnastics technique so that eventually it does feel easier and more comfortable? Like those quotes where one day your rep max becomes your warm-up, I guess risk of injury is a factor, and also one's own mental state. For example, it could be demotivating to be constantly last or capped, even if you know it won't be forever. And he puts, thanks coach.
Did put chief again, did he?
Yeah, chief or coach. And so there's a lot to unpack in that question. That's why when I initially saw it, I thought, right, we could do a whole podcast on this. And it's something that we have discussed as a team in depth beforehand as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to break down the parts of the questions, we're going to try and answer it as fully as possible, and then we're going to use Jack, otherwise known as 130 Kid, from now on.
That's my alter ego now for Max.
130 Kid. We're going to use Jack as an example through his training, kind of what he did when it comes to RX and prescribed movements and workouts and things. So go back to the question then. So for growth, improvement, and better in technique, would you say it's better to RX whenever you can? The answer to that piece is no. So what we need to do to start off with is break down why we have prescribed weights in CrossFit. So the easiest way for us to describe this and the simplest way is to take one of the most well-known workouts for CrossFit, and let's look at Fran. So Fran is 21 pull-ups, 21.59 pull-ups and thrusters at 43. If you're going to go for American, yeah. For males, and what is it, 30 for girls?
About 30 kilos, you know?
Yeah.
95 pounds, isn't it?
Yeah. So American weights, but either way, it's a lightish barbell. And that workout is written with a certain stimulus in mind. So when Greg Glassman, who created the workout, was writing that workout, he wanted to see people really smash their lactic system. So like go full send on the workout, have nothing slowing them down. And the reason he did the complementary movement, so upper body pull in the pull-ups and lower body push in the squats, is that they don't interfere with each other, so they're not going to slow you down. Yeah,
your pain.
So he wanted you to push, really hard and produce a lot of lactate, because you're operating at a level that you cannot sustain for a long period of time. And he wanted that to be a short, really difficult, challenging workout. So somewhere originally when you wrote that workout between 3 and 7 minutes. Even like the elite guys back in the early days, to go sub 3 was like insane. I think there's someone's got a record now, like is it 156, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's just sub 2 minutes.
It's
ridiculous. You can't get much quicker than that.
So the point, the stimulus there was train the lactic system and get lots of intensity in a short period of time. So that means accomplish a lot of work within that 3 to 7 minute mark. So if we take that workout now, and instead I made that thruster 80 kilos, okay, for males, and 50 kilos for females. A lot of people in the gym could probably complete that, but it would probably take them more than 3 to 7 minutes.
A little bit slower than 6 to 7 minutes,
They would complete the workout still, but it would take them a lot longer. You'd probably be doing 1 rep at a time on the thrusters. In fact, most people would probably be resting a good 90 seconds between reps, I'd say.
Definitely, yeah.
So that workout could end up taking you a half hour, even though it's still the same workout really, 21, 15, 9 pull-ups and thrusters, but just that slight change of introducing a much heavier bar completely changes the stimulus of the workout. So the stimulus of the workout becomes not as intense, because you're not achieving lots of work in a shorter period of time. It's actually achieving probably more work because you're lifting more weight, but in a longer period of time, so about half an hour. And you end up getting more of a strength stimulus in terms of training, because the pull-ups aren't really going to bother many people, but the thrusters will take you all day. Yeah, it'll take a while. So that kind of shows there in that one little change that you would completely change the stimulus of the workout. Now, it's all down to programming and what the programmer's intent for the workout is. So I might program Fran 21.59 pull-ups and thrusters at 80 kilos for a strength stimulus during the strength phase of training, and that would be a perfectly good workout. But let's make it even more strength based. Let's call it 21.59 strict pull-ups and thrusters at 80 kilos, and that might be my intention. And in which case, on that day, going at 80 kilos is a good idea. But on this, 3 months later, when we're maybe preparing for the open, or the coach's focus is on increasing your work capacity, so your ability to do work, that would be a really bad choice, because you wouldn't be doing that much work in a short space of time. So that's kind of like intent of the workout and why we have RX weights or prescribed weights in CrossFit. And it's so that you operate within the intent of whoever's written the workout or the program. And that kind of helps you gauge now. So if we go back to the original question, for growth and improvement, better technique, would you say it's better to RX whenever you can? And I'd say here that it's a scale. Okay, so we don't want to RX whenever you can, if it impacts the stimulus of the workout. But if you can RX and hit the stimulus of the workout, then yes.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that? Yeah.
No, I completely agree with that. I think there's definitely a time and a place, and we see it a lot with like the big hero workouts where everyone or people do everything they can to RX those workouts, and I think there's definitely a time and place for that. Like some people are sort of in between, and to do your first Fran RX is like a wicked achievement, and it's like a really fulfilling feeling, and that can build you up to the next time when you go a little bit quicker. But if you know for a fact that that's going to take you 15-20 minutes and the workout is supposed to be within 3 and 7 minutes, then it's not a good idea. And really, are you getting better at that workout? Because it does become a completely different workout. So I think like Matt said, you've got to have a look at the stimulus, and that's for us coaches to sort of identify that stimulus for you at the whiteboard and at the white brief for you to understand what weights you sort of should be doing and whether that RX is right for you at that moment.
Yeah, and that's kind of goes back to why you come to a ShireFit gym and why you pay as much money as you do for a membership, because you don't just get access to the gym, you also pay for the expertise in programming and the delivery of that program,
and my fantastic coffees as well,
and Jack's amazing coffees. So you actually, because you're buying into not just the membership, you're buying into the programming and the delivery. You have to trust that the coach and the programmer knows what's best for you, really. So you have to just say, like, yeah, these guys, they understand the body, how it works, how to get stimulus from the body, and how to create adaptations. So that means changes. That's a fancy word for changes in your body. And so when they're programming, they understand this. So, for example, during a work capacity cycle where I'm looking for people to get fitter, I wouldn't program Fran at 80 kilos. I would program it lighter, if anything, so that people can continuously move and there's nothing holding them back. And so, a good example is yesterday's workout. Barbell dash, which was 10 rounds, 150 metre run, 1 clean, 100 kilos for males or 70 for females. Now, when I was delivering that whiteboard brief, I was saying to everyone, we want this to be a heavy barbell for you, yeah? We are aware, that during the brief cycle, there aren't that many opportunities to lift heavy, okay? And we're working on your fitness during this cycle. So we don't want that barbell, we want that barbell to be heavy and challenging, but something that you can continuously lift, so come in. So when I said at the whiteboard, I was like, I want this to be a heavy weight, something you have to think about, but in the workout, I want you to be confident that you can finish every run and come back and hit it, and not fail any reps. And so the stimulus for that workout was written by Tara, and that's to try and maintain strength. I'm not trying to build strength, I don't want you to be failing any reps. We want you to maintain strength whilst working on your fitness. And that delivery is important for you as a person to be like, okay, I get the stimulus, my weight should be around whatever, 80 kilos, 100 kilos, whatever that is for you. But also for the coach to be able to apply that to you. And so in that class, there was a couple of times where I saw people going maybe a little bit too light. I walked over and said, I want you to add 5 kilos on, or maybe people going a bit too heavy, bring that down for me, I want you to go at 9, whatever it was.
Yeah, the best is when you don't tell them, you stick the weights on and see their face.
When they come back in from the room. How did you find sort of delivering that class?
No, I think it was, it's a really, really sort of fun class, and I think sometimes people underestimate how much we sort of communicate as a sort of coaching team, and we have a thing on Boxmate where we've got our coaching notes, so we all know the exact stimulus of what the person who's written that workout is when we're going into it, so that's how we sort of apply it. But it's fun one to coach, fast one. I think the goal of the workout was to keep moving, wasn't it? And when people started to fail, you lose that sort of fitness aspect, because you can recover when you're resting or take a longer rest, you can recover, and the goal was to hit a heavy barbell under fatigue, get a good fast workout in. So yeah, good workout, good fun one.
So moving back to the question, would you say it's better to RX whenever you can? We've covered that, but not necessarily finish the reps or get capped, and it be a grind and struggle. So again, it's all within the intention. So if the workout is supposed to be a grind and a struggle, we want that. Often I say to people, we're expecting you to fail a couple of reps here. I don't mind if you fail. If the workout's supposed to be a struggle, then yeah, choose to go RX. Listen to what the coach tells you at the whiteboard and go that little bit heavier that day. Getting capped also isn't a bad thing. Sometimes we put caps on to motivate people to work harder. It's always a little bit more motivating when you're running out of time, and you have to maybe kick up a little bit sooner than you think you should kick up, or pick up the barbell a bit sooner than you should. So sometimes we put caps in there as motivation, and sometimes they're intentionally tight. So again, you'll hear your coach say something like, "The cap is tight today, guys. You're gonna have to work really hard to get it in." Or you might hear the coach say, "We've got a 15-minute cap on, that's plenty of time, don't panic." It's all based around the communication between the coach and the athlete. And don't be scared of getting capped. It's not a bad thing. Realistically, you don't want to be getting capped during Fran.
Definitely not.
Because, like we said, the stimulus is that 3 to 7 minute work period. And if you're getting capped at 15 minutes on Fran, it's probably because the next class is starting and we want you out of the gym. But at the same time, there are workouts that we ride where it's 8 minute cap and we know that, only the top 5% of the gym is going to get through in that.
Yeah, I agree. I think there's, in terms of what you sort of said with it, not necessarily finishing the reps and getting capped. I think there is, it depends on where you're at as an athlete, really. I think when you've got people, like we have got athletes in the gym at the moment where they're not quite RX yet, but they're probably too strong for those other weights, and there will be a sort of transition phase where you are going to start to have to push yourself if you are going to get to those sort of RX weights or hitting those workouts RX. So it's not ultimately a bad thing, but you've got to kind of still be sort of meeting the requirements of the workout, if that makes sense. And there will be a transition phase where you are going to struggle to hit the cap. You're going to get slower by increasing the weight, making it more challenging, but ultimately that's how you're going to get better and you improve.
Yes, and then so moving on, it says, or scale to finish and perhaps dial on technique. So again, there are sessions that we will write where the aim is to get you to work on technique. So we might say something like, go for a way that you can hit perfectly every single time, or go for a movement on the gymnastics that you can go unbroken every set of 10. Things like that are really key bits of information that the members should try and listen to, because that means you'll fall within the workout stimulus or the intent. But that being said, you can also use these as opportunities to moderate your own training. So, Wilkes has asked this question. He's got a young boy, Vinny. How old's Vinny now? Probably a year and a half, something like that. He's a baby anyway. He's probably not sleeping that well. Let's say Wilkes comes in on Friday and he's got a lot on his plate. He's not slept. He's because Vinny's been up through the night. He's not ate very well. He's had a tough training week. On that Friday, it might be, let's say, chest to bar pull-ups in the workout. That could be an opportunity for Wilkes to just moderate his training and just communicate with the coach. But yeah, Max, I'm going to go for pull-ups today and just work on my technique because I don't feel up to smashing out chest to bars today. And that could be an opportunity for you to scale it back a little bit so that you can just get a good quality session in. Likewise on days when you are feeling good and it's can I squeeze out 10? Chest to bars, yeah. Let's have a go, let's try. And if you fall slightly short, the coaches aren't gonna, be mad at you for trying to push yourself and push the limit.
Yeah, I think it's ultimately looking at what you're trying to work on as an athlete yourself. For example, a good example, we've got Robbie D in the classes, and we had some chest to bars in the workout the other day, and he could smash out 10 plus kipping chest to bars very easily. But he used it as an opportunity to practice his butterfly chest to bars, and he took a hit in terms of the workout because he didn't get as many rounds in. But sometimes I think people focus so much on the leaderboard and the RX element of it that it takes a hindrance to their training. So wicked, if you know you're perfect at cleans or you know you're perfect at snatches and there's a workout at RX and you're doing RX, wicked, go for that. Ultimately, on the other hand, if you know that your technique needs a little bit of work and maybe taking a step back in the weight means you're going to hit good quality reps, that's ultimately going to benefit you. You might take it on the leaderboard, but as an athlete, that's making you a better athlete in the long run. So it's looking at your weaknesses, and sometimes it's not all about smashing yourself, it's about sometimes refining different elements, which is ultimately taking a step to go forward is what I usually kind of tell people.
Step back to go forward.
Yeah.
So on that note, we've been using the term RX, which if anyone's wondering where that comes from, it's shorthand for as prescribed for doctors and pharmacists and things. And it was like traditional CrossFit. As a company, ShireFit, at one of the team training days that we did, we discussed changing that vocabulary. And for the keen-eyed amongst you might have seen that we don't write RX anymore. We write proficient. We write proficient, developing, or beginner. And the reason we changed away from RX was because there was this sort of there's this connection to the RX is the workout weight, that's how it's supposed to be done.
Yeah, and some people would die for that RX no matter what.
And so there was this like feeling of like you were a failure if you didn't go to RX, or if the weight was 40 kilos as prescribed and you didn't do the workout as prescribed, you were some sort of failure, or you were short of what we needed to be, which we didn't think correctly communicated the message. So it was actually a suggestion from Ben from Redefined Mindset that we changed the vocabulary to include, proficient. That is someone who understands the movement, is proficient at it, and isn't going to be troubled by it during the workout. Developing, someone who's nearly there but still working on the skills. And then beginner, someone who's a beginner. And that's where in the classes, you'll see those 3 levels, and we'll talk about like a proficient male on this workout should be hitting 100 kilos on this clean. Developing male should be somewhere around the 70 mark, and a beginner 350.
Yeah, I think for us it's been pretty useful, because I feel like there's not really a middle ground between RX and scaled, or there's a very big middle ground in there, and some people go to the RX because they think I'm too advanced for the scale options, if that makes sense. And I feel like that proficient just gives us that like next little level, which allows for a bit more of a catch-all for everybody. Kind of gives us that extra sort of stopgap in between.
Yeah, so just moving down the question a little bit. So is there something in constantly pushing and trying that heavier weight or gymnastics technique so that eventually does feel easier and more comfortable? The short answer to that is yes, there is. There is something in constantly wanting to be better, constantly trying to do more, constantly pushing yourself. Absolutely, that's what we want to see from our members, is that don't just swing the 12 kilo kettlebell and be happy with that. Like next session, try the 16. Try and do more within reason. It's a scale, I said that before, it's like an arch. You do want to be pushing for more, but with a view to what you are potentially costing yourself as a result. So, I'm not saying every single workout go for the heavy bar, go for proficient weights, but yes, I do want to see desire to improve as a coach. I love that. I like that Wilk's constantly trying to be better and he's looking for more. And ultimately, even at our level now, we're realizing that we need 30 kilo dumbbells, 40 kilo dumbbells. We need heavier equipment. We need to make the chest to bars harder by doing bigger sets. We constantly have to push the boundaries, and
a lat pull down machine.
We need a lat pull down machine.
And a pet
that's just for bodybuilding.
Yeah.
But yeah, we need to constantly push the boundaries, because if you do, the body is very, very clever, and it will adapt to what you ask it to do. So if you've been doing CrossFit for 5 years and you've picked up all the movements, and you're happy, you can thrust to 40 kilos and you can do pull-ups, and you don't push towards those chest to bars or those bar muscle-ups or those more difficult things, you will, I'm not going to say you won't stay still, but you'll stagnate. You'll start to progress more and more slowly.
I think ultimately it sort of comes back to the stimulus of the workout. Like again, if you're going for a heavy barbell and you're just happy sticking at the same sort of weight, like Matt said, your body gets used to it and you feel comfortable at that weight, so you don't get the desired stimulus and what we're after. So you are it's like a building block, isn't it? You're getting better and better every session that you come in or doing those sort of movements, and you've got to progress with that in order to challenge your body, in order to improve. And that's why when you see people hitting the same sort of weights everywhere, and then sometimes aren't getting the progress that you want, this is the next step and this is what you need to do to help yourself get there.
Yeah, I will risk, I don't really want to say this because I feel like I might get lynched, but I will risk my own safety by bringing into the male and female divide on this. And as coaches, I'm not being sexist, this is just generalism. We can see general rules applying to males and females. So I'll just give you a little bit of advice on that. In that males generally choose to do more than they can. They generally choose to go a bit heavier than they should, and generally choose to do more and end up failing as a result, which isn't a bad thing, like I've spoken about, because you're constantly pushing the limit. You might get better as a result, etc. The drawback to that is more risk for injury, potentially risk of demotivating yourself because you can't complete it, so on and so forth. And then the opposite side of the spectrum, you've got females who generally choose to stay within their comfort zone a little bit too much, choose to go lighter, choose to stick with pull-ups because that's what they know. And again, the positive of that is reduced risk of injury, more confidence, etc. But the downside to that is, you don't push to those high levels as quickly as the males would at times. So yeah, just know, there is kind of like a general rule, and if you're the type of person who constantly goes too heavy, you think, maybe rein it back a bit, and if you're the type of person who maybe needs to step it up a little bit, then step it up a little bit as well.
I mean, I was going to make that point, but I'd leave it. I've got access to that. They lose Matt's on me.
Yeah. I always bring up the sexism in the show.
Yeah.
Okay, just going through the last little bits then. So, like those quotes where one day your rep max becomes your warm-up. I mean, it is true. It does. And I don't really like that quote. It's like a little bit, braggy, but it is true. Like as you progress and your clean becomes 125, doing 100 in a workout isn't as worrying. As you progress and you can thrust at 80 kilos, when you're doing Fran at 40, it feels like you can move it. There are times where you do have to push those boundaries so that your perception of lighter or easier load becomes.
Yeah, I think that's the key sort of word or phrase in that one. Is pushing those boundaries, but it's not smashing through them. It's like not going from 10 kilo to the 30 kilo dumbbell. It's like constantly creeping those boundaries up, and that's why. Yeah, sometimes you see like someone jump from 40 kilos to 60 kilos in the thruster, and you've got to keep making those little leaps, but not the extent of or sacrifice that we haven't already.
Yeah. And then so just finishing off the last little bit of the question, so it's like I guess risk of injury is a factor. Yeah, obviously, the more you push the boundaries, the more chance of injury you're going to get. So, if one of your goals in training or main goals is to stay healthy, cool. Yeah, don't push the limits. Stay within your means, or only push them a little bit. But if one of your goals in training is to make the CrossFit Games, well, guess what? Eventually you're going to have to put some risk into getting injured, unfortunately.
Yeah, I think, unfortunately, I think injuries are part and parcel of learning and training and getting better. And I've had many injuries in the past, and as an athlete, it made me better because you've got to sort of identify why those injuries are coming in and what can I change to do that and essentially get better. So I think naturally with what we do, we're pushing ourselves past that limits because we're trying to get better. The little niggles will come, so don't think it's the end of the world that happens. Like we've all been through those sort of things, and that's part and parcel of training.
Okay, and then the last bit, I really like how Wilkes has brought in the mental state to this, and also one's own mental state. It could be demotivating to constantly be last or capped, even if you know it won't be forever. So yeah, absolutely, mental state is a part of that. Part of training and getting better is feeling like you're getting better. I can't understate that. If you feel like you're getting stronger, chances are you're probably getting stronger. If you feel like you're getting fitter, chances are you're probably getting fitter. So, no, you don't want to be going in and getting capped at every single workout and going, oh, my strength just isn't going up, or oh, I'm not feeling right. That might be a sign, especially mentally, if you're not feeling it, to bring it in a little bit and look after yourself a bit more and maybe go for a slightly lighter option.
Yeah, and get some wins.
Get some wins, yeah. You can only sustain so many losses before you start, hiding from them. You need to give yourself wins.
Me and Max have felt this all this season when Tara beat us in every workout for about 6 weeks.
Exactly. It's hard to lose over and over again, and lose against yourself as well and your own expectations. So if you're going in saying I'm gonna do every workout as written, and then failing at every single one, you ain't gonna be here very long. So there are times where you need to be like, no, I'm going to go lighter and finish within the cap and get a good time and be like, yeah, you know, I am getting fitter, I am getting better, and take the win from it.
It's a balancing scale. There's times you need to push yourself, and
yeah,
that's what perfect.
So very quickly, I'm just going to go back to ask Jack, kind of like his journey with like choosing prescribed weights or RX, and like maybe Jack, you can draw on experiences where you maybe got that wrong and you learned from it, maybe got it right, and sort of how you progressed over the years. So you started at CrossFit Leeds, didn't you?
Yeah, started at CrossFit Leeds. Started when I was about 18, 19, coming as a student. I remember the very first workout that I did, and it was with Alex, my housemate now. And we went in and it had rope climbs in it, and I literally, like, a minute Alex was just about to start the timer, you know, like, right, 60 seconds we're going to go, and me and my housemate at the time, like, can you teach us how to rope climb? And he was like, probably not right now. So that was like the first workout that I didn't do as prescribed, so to speak. But in terms of like drawing in from my own training, this is maybe because I've always been quite competitive and wanting to like push for the competitive side. Like, I used the RX as a bit of a driver for me, and like I wanted to push to those RX weights and in those workouts, and so there's definitely, I see the benefit in that element. I think the problem with RX is when people get fixated on RX, and I think they measure their worth and value in that workout on whether they are RX or not, and that's like the big danger side in terms of the mental aspect, because you could have done, I don't know, PB Chesterton in the workout, but you didn't RX it in terms of a weight, you might be coming out of that session seeing that as a loss, and that's like a big win. So I think it's the perspective on it and how you use that as fuel, like whether you measure your self-worth from that or whether you use that as a chance to better yourself. And I always used it as a chance to better myself in a way, like I wanted to push those and I wanted to be there because I knew I'd not be near the top end of the class. That makes sense?
Yeah. So I think what you're saying there is like focus on the effort.
Yeah.
Did you put 100% effort into whatever it was, whether it was RX or not?
Yeah.
And then the effort will lead you to the
100%, yeah. And I understand sort of the emotional attachment to RX. I still remember the first workout that I RX, and actually, you know, when you look at the leaderboard, I was first in the class, and I like remember the first workout that I did that, and I'm like, I remember my housemate texted me saying, "Oh, well done." I was buzzing about it, so I understand like the emotional attachment and like what an achievement it is.
Yeah.
I don't undervalue that at all. Like, it is wicked going RX, but it's not or hitting a workout RX all the time, but it's not the be all and end all.
Yeah. I think we discussed this in a previous podcast actually, and you just tied it in really nicely there, Jack, with your own training and that. Goal, all RX prescribed is a goal, really. And we said the importance of a goal is huge. You've got to have a goal to drive progress. If you haven't got a goal, you're flapping in the wind, making no progress, yeah? But if you focus on a goal too much, it will become negative, just like anything. If you do focus on it too much, it will become negative. So then you need to lean into the process. So your goals on one side, the actual process on the other, and you need to be bang down the middle. You need an eye on those goals, but also be leaning into the process to achieve them.
Yeah.
And if you just goal driven, I want to be RX, I want to be RX, I want to be RX, and you do that every single day, and you forget about the process, you won't be getting better.
And I think, like you said earlier, the process is those sessions where you're like, oh, I'm going to take a hit on this workout today, and I'm going to get a worse time, but I'm going to try do butterfly pull-ups instead of kicking pull-ups, and that's the process element of it, and it's taking a step back and seeing when there's a time and a place. Like I said, if you know you can get that workout RX and you move perfectly, when you go for it. If you think you can work on a weakness in a workout and take that hit, that's also okay.
If, as a coach, Jack, you had to choose between someone pushing too hard, trying to go RX and not meeting the standard, or the opposite, going too easy and never going for RX, what would your choice be as a coach?
Oh, this is a tough one, this is. Honestly, for me, I probably want to see more of a push and pushing themselves to the limits than someone not pushing themselves, and I think that's probably again me as a competitor. I want to see effort. It's more the effort and than the actual description of the workout. I don't know about you.
I would agree with that. I'd prefer someone put 60 kilo on the bar and go like, I fancy this today, okay, and then me as a coach have to say, Wilkes, mate, 60 is going to wreck you, go at 50. Then the opposite, he puts 40 on the bar, and we have to go over and say, come on, you can at least do 50. You know, I prefer you try for more and then be brought down.
Yeah, I prefer you to shoot for it than
Yeah.
You always kind of
Shoot for the stars, and you might land on the cloud.
Yeah, I keep saying this, so it changes every time I say it. But
okay, cool. So hopefully that has answered your question, Will, 'cause I know it was long, it's 35 minutes worth of answer, but what I would like to round up with is a bit of general advice to all the members, which is if you're unsure in a workout of what weight you should be going at, or whether you should be doing chest to bars or normal pull-ups or banded pull-ups, whatever, then speak to your coach, communicate, and the coach will be able to provide guidance for you and should be providing that guidance for you at all times. Listen carefully in the whiteboard briefs. We don't just do whiteboard briefs for the fun of it. The whiteboard brief is there to explain the intended stimulus of the workout. So you'll hear some clues in that whiteboard brief about what sort of weight you should be choosing, what level of difficulty movements you should be choosing. And then finally, just trust that the coaches have got your back, and we wouldn't send you into Fran 80 kilos and expect you to finish it in 3 minutes. We've been doing this a long time, programming and coaching, and we know what someone who is overreaching looks like, and we know someone who's underreaching looks like. And if we're saying to you, put on a bit more weight, you can do it a bit more, then listen. And if we're saying to you, maybe strip it back a little bit, go for normal pull-ups today instead, then listen to that as well.
Yeah, I think ultimately we're on the sort of journey with you. Like, we're all invested in you as a team, so we want to get you better. So when we do say that to you, well, probably not today, it's not us trying to hold you back in any way, it's just trying to make you better. So trust us in that element. And usually, if you've gone too heavy and you ask me the question, I won't say anything, I'm just like, you can usually tell on my face.
If you get that noise.
Maybe not.
Wicked, I hope you found that useful. Cheers for tuning in again, guys. Make sure you like, follow and subscribe to the show in order to keep us motivated to do these shows for you guys. We really enjoy them, but without you guys listening to them and taking something from them, then there'll be no point in us doing them. Catch you next week.
Bye. Bye.